I'm Dr. Ben Walker. I'm the clinical lead at Anima for secondary care and neighbourhood care, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Souradip.
Hi there everyone, I'm the product lead for our request, triage and online consultations product.
Maybe we could start by talking about triage as it is today and what you've been working on in Smart Triage.
So triage, as we know, is often the busiest and most stressful parts of any GP's day. At Anima, we're trying to make it easier for it to happen. Patients submit currently a request through either the online portal or the NHS app or via the phone using our AI receptionist. And we have a unified questionnaire engine that's able to ask them all the right questions, and that all ends up in a GP's triage dashboard. One of the things that we're trying to work on is trying to reduce the workload of GPs as much as we can. One way in which we do that, or we're trying to do that, is by launching what we call Smart Triage. What does this involve? It means that we can set up automations such that certain conditions, certain combinations of symptoms can find their way into an appointment book automatically. For example, if someone needs a cervical smear, they don't have to be triaged by a GP, they can go straight into an appointment. They can be sent referrals to other places. For example, if people meet the criteria for pharmacy first, then they can get a referral sent straight to their local pharmacy of their choice without needing to involve their GP. And then finally, we are trying to basically take each kind of broad cluster of symptoms, for example, back pain, and decompose that into different types that could be actioned differently. So for example, back pain could be mechanical back pain, which could be sent to the first contact physio, or maybe there's nerve-related back pain, at which point they might require a GP appointment.
I mean, there's this odd irony, right, at the core where technological tools and automation are putting humans back into care. I mean, you think about, it'd be great if you could talk through like what's the day in the life of a clinician now without Anima versus what this unlocked time actually helps them achieve?
Yeah, so I think it's really important, that point, because all the technology we're building here at Anima really is trying to put that humanity and care back into the NHS and medicine. Because often I've worked in places where it's so easy to be overwhelmed and then ending up trying to do just enough to be safe, but not going above and beyond in the way that you might ideally like to, and in the way that you might think of doing when we first come out of medical school. All the various bits of technology that we're building are trying to inject that back into general practice, try and give people the time and space for their own personalities and own interests to kind of shine through. One really powerful example that we had recently was when one patient called their practice and they had, I think it was some pain in their eye. Now, in a pre-Anima world, what would happen would be that they would call the GP, they'd get stuck in a phone queue for maybe half an hour. The receptionist would note down maybe a 2-word summary like painful eye. They may get an appointment later that day in the afternoon, and so already from calling at 8 a.m, it would take them until like maybe 2 p.m. until they get an appointment. And then by the time they go see the doctor, they might be waiting in another waiting room for another hour, and then eventually get signposted to the care they need. What happened in this case was that our voice assistant asked the right questions, picked up that something wasn't quite right here, and flagged it, and marked it as red, urgent, needs to be seen straight away. That allowed the clinical staff to kind of notice that in amongst all the sea of other requests coming in. It was identified as something that was potentially sight-threatening, and instead of waiting all day for an appointment and getting to the right place, they were kind of triaged within minutes. They got a call back almost immediately and got the care that they needed that ultimately probably saved their vision. And that makes a huge impact on someone's life.
Yeah, it's a really powerful story. I think it raises this thing of like hidden clinical risk. Like we talk about products adding risk, and they do add risk. We think very carefully about that, right? But at the same time, there are always opportunities for there to be hidden risk. And you'd say our patient calling at 8 and getting seen at 2 is a quick turnaround. That's a same day urgent care turnaround, but there's still like hidden clinical risk in there. I wonder whether you could talk about like how Smart Triage unlocks that capacity to try and reduce these areas of hidden clinical risk.
So one of the things that we try and do already in the product today, even without Smart Triage, is assign a RAG rating to every request that comes in. And so red, amber or green according to the urgency. And we've seen a 95% accuracy rate. Clinicians are always advised to check and ensure that our scoring is accurate. And only in about 5% of cases do they require an adjustment from the data that we've seen. And so from that, we're already able to prioritize attention towards the places where it might be the most impactful. And then on top of that, the Smart Triage system that we're introducing hopefully makes that even more clear. So for example, someone who needs some prescriptions of antibiotics for a UTI, we can make sure that they get access to that care within minutes rather than within hours or days. And what impact does that have on clinical staff and patients? I think for the patient, it means that they're able to actually address a problem before it gets worse, and a lot of these complications start to develop, especially with delayed access to care, because we can match them to the right actions as soon as they submit the form. And what does it mean for clinical staff? It means that they can rest easy knowing that they've got a certain minimum standard that is always being met, no matter how sleep deprived or how good or bad a day they're having. They can ensure that they're meeting certain kind of standards with regards to the care that they're delivering.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, like as a doctor, right, you deal with all of these different stakeholders, all these different groups. You know, you're supporting patients, you're working as a clinician, you're working with admin teams and the practice manager and other care environments. How do you think about product from that perspective? Knowing there are so many different people that you are having to serve at once, how do you think about clinical product in that respect?
So from my point of view, I think everyone in the system ultimately wants the same thing. It may come out in different ways, but ultimately everyone wants to help the patients that are coming in and seeking help. Otherwise they wouldn't be working in healthcare. The question becomes, how do we do that in a way that makes sense for each of these people involved? And so I think it's really important that we never lose sight of the fact that we're trying to get people better quality care more quickly. If we get that right, patients benefit, clinicians benefit, other people in a GP practice that aren't clinicians, for example, admin staff and other non-GP clinicians, for example, they all benefit because it means that they're ultimately able to do their job more effectively and they have fewer barriers in the way to feeling like they did a good job at the end of the day.
I think it's so important to have that reassurance, because I'm sure you've had days like this, right, when you're in the hospital and you are so conscious that there are so many balls being juggled and spinning plates, and there are not systems in place that reassure you that when there's so much going on, you know that they're all going to be caught and saved, and the clinical risk is then being addressed. So I think like having these sorts of products in play that can support the clinicians to do the work that they're doing, but with that kind of safety net, that support, that structure underneath is super important.
For me, it was always the case that when I was working in the NHS myself, it often felt that the technology was working against me and I had to jump through all these hoops to be able to make the technology work for me. So maybe the computer wouldn't turn on, or maybe I had to click through 500 different pop-ups before I got to the bit I wanted. Our approach at Anima is trying to be the opposite, that we're trying to be this kind of safety net and provide these guardrails that help people do what they're actually trying to do at the end of the day, rather than getting in their way.
I mean, maybe you could talk about some of the work that we've been doing to shorten the questionnaires, to make them as kind of clear and to the point as possible for patients, because I know it's really important. People are busy, they want to make sure that the right information is captured. Could you talk a little bit about the work we've been doing there?
Absolutely. We've taken on a lot of feedback from our patient participation groups that we've been holding, and often one of the feedback that we had was, from the clinician's point of view, it was really good because we were collecting a very full, complete clinical picture as to what was going on. From the patient's point of view, they felt they were answering a lot of questions. Often there was a little bit of anxiety as to getting to the end, so to get some eyes on their medical problem, and they felt the questions were kind of getting in the way. And so we've gone back and done all this analysis as to what questions actually really, really matter and which ones are slightly less relevant. We've tried to simplify these questions down now to no more than about 10 or 11 questions in total. In most cases, even fewer than that. But each question collects sufficient information that we are able to be very confident. So we've done a bunch of analysis as we've rolled out these new questionnaires as well. And we found that the amount of time taken for patients to fill out these questionnaires is about half what it used to be. So what used to take them maybe 8 minutes now takes them about 4, maybe even less than that. While at the same time, the number of times a clinician has to then go back and request more information, that's actually also been decreased because we've taken that feedback on board, we've learned from that, and we've incorporated that into the questionnaire. And finally, we used to have about 20% of people fill out something that we call the general questionnaire, i.e. they weren't able to select the right questionnaire from the list, so they've just selected none of the above and filled out a few basic questions. This obviously gets them in front of the triaging GP's eyes more quickly, but not necessarily with the right amount of information, because patients don't have medical degrees and they don't necessarily know what kind of things to mention. And so by introducing this free text box at the very beginning, where we then pick the right questionnaire, we found that actually has gone down from 20% down to about 3 or 4%. We're also integrating directly into the NHS's electronic referral system, and this is going to allow us to not just allow clinicians to send referrals from within the triage product directly by automatically filling in all the information that's been provided to us by the patient into the referral form. As you and I both know, there are a lot of different referral forms out there, and often they can get very repetitive. And again, I see this as necessary with the current systems that people use. But as we move towards what the future might look like, I want to move us to a world where patients and clinicians only need to enter in information once and have it kind of synchronize across all the places where it needs to. So once we send this referral through to the electronic referral service to a secondary care institution, for example, a hospital, all that information will be in the format that they're expecting, but it will be fed through from the information that patients have provided and GPs have kind of added on to without getting in the way. And ultimately, we want to get to a point where clinicians feel comfortable in actually patients being able to automate that process entirely, so that if it's something that people always send a referral for, we actually can automate that process entirely. And once a patient's filled out one of these questionnaires, we can then go into the electronic referral service and send the referral directly on the practice's behalf. That means that that's one less person that needs to be triaged, and that's one patient who gets that referral much more quickly than they might have otherwise been expecting.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm super excited about is, as a clinician, right, you remember when you send a referral, there's all these different guidelines at different levels depending on the specific location of the practice, the ICB, the PCN, etc. And you end up in this instance where you're trying to figure out, like, what is the latest guideline for what is the threshold for sending a referral? Where should I be sending it to? One of the things I'm super excited about with this is taking some of that unnecessary workload away from clinicians to search for the right guidelines and the right place to send a referral.
Often
Actually,
in a lot of different places, I've seen a lot of people work as care navigators, do exactly this kind of role. And I think it's a brilliant idea, actually. And I think we should try and make that available. Obviously not everywhere is able to hire a person to be able to do this, but I want us to be able to provide the same kind of functionality and experience for patients and clinicians, where a lot of that complexity can be simplified down using technology, and patients can get that care that they want to. So we're trying to make it possible to do everything that relates to a medical triage request from within Anima. So to reduce the context switching, like we talked about, between different apps and different things that you need to kind of log into and all this other stuff. And so we're trying to make it really easy to do and action the care you want without the technology getting in the way, to reduce those barriers and speed bumps along the route to delivering great care. And one of the ways that we're doing that is integrating with the electronic prescription service. We've done this by going through a full assurance process with the NHS England and NHS digital teams. And what that allows us to do is access and deliver prescriptions electronically directly from within Anima. For example, you might see a triage request come in, and soon you'll be able to just click a few buttons, select the most appropriate prescription, and then send that off to their chosen pharmacy within just a few clicks.
so thanks very much for coming in, Souradip, and talking about Smart Triage. Really exciting to see. It's going to be available in the next month, in the very near future. I'm really excited to see it come together.
Yeah, we're going to be rolling this out steadily throughout the next kind of few months. So if you're interested in being part of our early pilot program, please get in touch.
Yeah, fantastic. You're interested in taking part, let us know. And thanks very much for the chat, Souradip. See you later.
See you soon.
Goodbye.